Although there were many camping scenes started up in the late 60s and early 70s, and probably long before that, but those were the ones that I was involved with, the various camps and festivals that were happening all over. Um, but the particular thread that the Rainbow Circle developed from started in Glastonbury with Paul Jenkins and the astrology camp in 1984. Uh, from there, we developed the Rainbow Circle energy, and the Rainbow Circle didn't have that same connection to Glastonbury that Polden had, and we had sites all over the place. We started off in Devon, we had a site in Bath Easton, we had Teddy Stone's site, which was Glastonbury. We had various different sites. And one of the sites we had was with a guy called Derek Godwin in Rodley Road in, well, it wasn't in anywhere. It was about 20 miles, no, not 20, 10. It was about 10 miles outside Gloucestershire. No, sorry, it was about 10 miles outside Gloucester and on the banks of the River Severn. That all worked fine until we needed to have more than one site during the year because there was the 28-day rule. So Derek couldn't lease us his land for more than 28 days, and we needed more than 28 days. And he introduced us to a friend of his called Jeremy, whose second name I don't remember. I think it might have been Harding, but I might have got that from a different landowner. I don't know. But Jeremy lived and farmed just up the road from Derek, and slightly in away from the Severn, slightly into the countryside, if you like. But he had a site near a place called Flaxley, and we used to know it as the Flaxley site. Now, Flaxley is an amazing situation, because not too far up the road from it, maybe 2 or 3 miles, there's an old ruined mill, and behind that mill there's an amazing well. You go up through the woods, and you can drive some of the way. There's a path, a driveway, rough track, and then you have to park and you go off to the left and you climb around until you find it. After a while, you get to know the way.
St Anthony's.
Yeah, that's the well. Yeah. Sorry?
Is that St Anthony's well that you're
Oh,
talking
St
about?
Anthony's Well. Yes, indeed it is. Yes, it was St Anthony's Well, which was an amazing Victorian structure, I think, a square, well, oblong, well, which was about 3 foot, 4 foot maybe, about 4 foot deep, and a spring that fed into it. And from there, the water also went to a place on the side of one of the roads nearby where we used to collect our water from. But the well itself was an amazing place. It was in a beech wood, and it was, there were people who passed by, but it was fairly isolated. Occasionally you'll get some horse riding people, bit curious as to know what we were all doing up there by the well. But we were actually picnicking, jumping in the well, getting out of the well water, of course, was quite cold, especially when it was summertime. In a way, it was easier getting in there in the winter. I've done that a couple of times, but it's not so inviting in the winter, but it is also not such a contrast between the heat of the sun and the coldness of the water. But anyway, you'd stay in there for a minute or two, not much longer usually, and then jump out and dry off and picnic and play music and sing and chant in the sunshine. And that was a really lovely expedition that happened almost every camp. Um, then another place that we used to go to was a place called Little Dean, and that was in the other direction. We needed to go out, find the road towards Cinderford, and then take a turning off that road towards Little Dean. And I think what happened was that the guy who owned this site, which was a site of an ancient castle, came to one of the camps just to see what was happening down the road, I suppose. And he made contact with us, and we used to go up there and do little ceremonies there at various times. This was supposedly one of the sites where the when the Normans, I think it was, came to conquer the area, they had to cross the River Severn to get to the Forest of Deanland, and they didn't know about the Severn Bore, and they were on their way across the very shallow waters of the River Severn, and suddenly they were overwhelmed and mostly drowned by the waters of the Severn Bore. Now, there was a story there which I don't really remember, but it's about the tempting of the soldiers at the right moment so that they would be there, so that it would be the time of year, the right time for the highest bore. Anyway, we used to go up there and do ceremonies too, and that was a good place. Where was the other place? Oh, the Silver Fox Cafe, that's right. The Silver Fox was just a local cafe that did fry-ups and just general easy food, and we used to go there for breakfast. Often we would go there for breakfast. It was great fun because it was a way to escape from the intensity of the camps, because sometimes they were very intense, especially if you were supposed to be sorting everything out for everybody. That was part of the problem. You know, we were the social security, we were the dole office, we were the marriage guidance council, we were everything. But of course we weren't. We were just ordinary people putting on camps, and we suddenly found ourselves trying to deal with all these situations, and it was amazing to be able to escape to the Silver Fox Cafe. However, I have to say that that's not really what you want. When you put on a camp, what you want is for people to have breakfast there, and for people to continue to discuss their issues and their problems and their joys and their happiness as well, because the camps were, generally speaking, really happy, joyful scenes. And so many people have amazing recollections of Rainbow Circle. And I too have amazing recollections of Rainbow Circle. It changed my life, and it changed the life of a lot of people. I have loads of people that still come up to me and say, I remember you from Rainbow Circle. Rainbow Circle changed my life. And I really believe that we had much more of an effect than what we realised at the time.
So even though Rainbow Circle eventually went to Derbyshire,
Ah,
the after the split, but the Rainbow 2000, Rainbow Futures,
Mhm.
and now the Rainbow Summer Camp still operate from
Yes.
Waxley.
They from the actual same fields of
Well,
Waxley? No.
definitely
Across the
area.
road, it's Rodley Road. It's further along Rodley Road than Derek Godwin's place. About another mile, I think, further on. They have a lovely site there,
Still the same area though.
and it's still the same area. Indeed, it is. The Forest of Deaners. It's a really, it's quite central in many ways. It's not too far from Glastonbury in the West Country and the alternative scene down here, and it's not too far from London, and it's not too far from the north. It's a place where somehow or other um, we all managed to get there, because that was the problem when we moved to Derbyshire. Okay, the move to Derbyshire was set up by a really enthusiastic and lovely, but rather inexperienced guy who lived there and who knew this lovely organic farmer there who really wanted to have camps happening on his land. I don't think he still is that enthusiastic about having camps on his land. I don't even know actually whether Rainbow Circle is still with the same farmer, but they are certainly in the same area. And the reason for that is that by the time, yeah, the reason for that is that we had this big container lorry. We discovered that the easiest, if not necessarily the cheapest, but the easiest way to make sure that we got our equipment from place to place was not to have half a dozen different people with their different trucks and lorries taking this and that, but to have a big container lorry and pay for it to be towed. Now, it was quite expensive for it to be towed, but I'll tell you, keeping all these vehicles on the road was also extremely expensive and actually took a lot of energy, a lot of work, a lot of organisation. And with the container lorry, you just had to phone up the people who provided the what do they call it, the dolly that pulled the container lorry, and they'd come and do it. They'd charge you quite a lot of money, but we could manage that. However, the other thing was that the container lorry, in order to go on the road, had to be plated. That's a bit like an MOT for a car. And we used to get it plated each year in Gloucestershire, where we had contacts, and and it was done, and we paid for it. It was not a big deal. Once it got to Derbyshire and ran out of plating and needed to be replated to be able to come back down to Blacksley, it never happened. I don't know why it never happened. I never really got too involved in the Derbyshire camps. We were well ensconced in the Flaxley site, but coming up was the major eclipse of the sun, which would be touching the British Isles in the southwest corner. And in order to experience this, we planned to have an astrology camp down in Devon or Cornwall. Now, the eclipse was 1999, and in, I think it was 1997, we started site hunting. It was difficult because there were so many people site hunting for that eclipse. And therefore, the money involved started to escalate. In the end, we ended up with a site in Devon. And the Eclipse camp was an amazing experience. It was really, really strange the way that the sun and the shadow, I suppose wasn't the sun that moves, it was the shadow that moved across the land, and how the birds stopped singing, and how suddenly it became dark. And then it didn't last all that long, but it was extraordinary to see it not only moving in, but moving out, moving on, and how everything came back to life again afterwards. You thought, wow, you can really see the enlivening energy of the sun, and how it energizes the whole of our world. And it really made me appreciate the power and the energy and it's the chi energy that the sun gives you. It just lights up the land and it lights up existence. And that was a really beautiful experience. And getting back from the Eclipse camp was another story. That was back to a different site in Flaxley. I think there was something else happening on the original site. But anyway, we came back to a different site. We called it the railway site because it had a line going down the side of it. But anyway, we came back to that. It was a healing camp. But we were also exhausted. And I don't really remember that camp at all. I was not part of the coordination team. I was just recovering.